This is Polaris Live. I'm your host, Sarwar KASHMERI, welcoming our readers from around the world to this global series of conversations on the US-China relationship. This program is brought to you in conjunction with the Foreign Policy Association in New York. Great pleasure in welcoming back to Polaris Live today Professor Michele GERACI, who is the head of the China Economic Policy Program at Nottingham University Business School, head of China at the Global Policy Institute, as well as senior research fellow and adjunct professor of finance at Xinjiang University. He's been living in China since 2008. Professor GERACI was former Undersecretary of State at the Italian Ministry of Economic Development, responsible for international trade and investment. He played a key role in Italy's developing the Belt and Road Memorandum of Understanding between China and Italy. And so please welcome Professor Michele GERACI.
Thank you very much.
GERACI. How are you?
I'm fine. Thank you. Good morning to you. And thank you again for the kind invitation. It's an honor and a pleasure to be talking to you again.
Well, it's our honor and our pleasure, and it's the first time, I think, that we've had someone on Polaris Live at the Strait of Messina waiting to catch a train. So if there are noises at the back, I just wanted to let our viewers know how exciting this program is.
We are live from the railway station.
Well, thank you. Thank you for making time for us. So, you know, where I'd like to start, Michele, is I would like to ask you about your recent trip to Xinjiang, because media reports in America, as well as much of the West, are constantly talking about China's supposed mistreatment of its Muslim minority in Xinjiang. And things get pretty serious because China is standing accused in the West of violating human rights. Some have called it genocide, forced sterilization, internment camps. This is a big impediment, in my opinion, in developing closer ties between America and China. You've been there, you've been on the ground, you've talked to Uyghurs, you've been to the Muslim Institute in Xinjiang. Give us your thoughts.
Thank you. I tell you what I have seen or what I haven't seen, and no one has ever been able to tell me really, is why would China carry out such a thing? That, like you say, we call it potential genocide against one specific subgroup of the Muslim community, the Uighur. There are many Muslim minorities in China. For example, the Hui, different from the Uighur, similar name, they live in Xinjiang. So the question has always been, why would China target one specific group and being accused of genocide? That pretty much means killing someone because you belong to a certain ethnic group, as opposite to going heavy on some group of people because of other reasons. I tell you, as you know, I do economics, trade, but of course we look at the social issues because, like you say, they do impact the trade relationship. I do think China has, many problems. Of course, they have a different social political system. There is no electoral democracy. We know that there are issues related to freedom of speech and so on. But I really did not notice, and I could not find the reason why of this supposed genocide. The view that I've formed has been mostly that China has reacted to some political insurgents, maybe separatists, maybe terrorists, and maybe they've been heavy-handed. Maybe we can argue with China that the measure that they've taken to fight against this group of people that were perceived by the Chinese government as conducting illegal activities, and indeed there were, we have to be objective, there were some terrorist attacks. Maybe China was heavy-handed. Maybe China was rounding up all the people with whom potential suspect had been in touch, maybe family members, maybe all the friends with whom you exchange messages, and maybe, as I said, heavily handed on those. And this is, I think, a debate that we could have with China, and I think China would engage. Having said that, the impression I got there is that this terrorist activity have, over the last 4 years, completely been eliminated from the society. Xinjiang is not what it used to be a few years ago, with, let's say, separations between the Han ethnic and the local Muslim minorities, with even barriers, with taxi not being able to cross one or the other side of the city in Urumqi, for example, because, of course, was kind of semi-dangerous. No problems at all. So, some of the issues, I don't think China would have any reason to do it, and I've seen no evidence of this. I've been with people, I've been to restaurants with the local community, I've even been to bars, markets, and people live there normally. They don't think like tomorrow someone will come and round them up and take them to some camps. So that's not how people live there.
Let me pursue this a little bit more because I wanted to point out to people that not only do you spend a lot of time there, but you speak Mandarin fluently. So that
and I've learned a couple of words in Uighur also. In those
you have, and
it's a duty. It's a duty.
So the rest of us, if we were to go there to do a report, let's say, we would have to take an interpreter and so on. So you have that additional level of expertise that you use. But, Michele, what I wanted to ask you, I hear what you say, but why, if that is true, we continue to read, and this is confirmed by a lot of reporters, that China does not let people come in and go into these camps. For example, Xinjiang, that area is one of the largest cotton producers, in the world, and European Union and others are starting to clamp down on cotton that's grown there, going into garments. Why does China not allow reporters to come in, go where they want, talk to who they want? As far as I know, this is not allowed. Can you shed some light? Why do they do that?
I'll tell you what happened. People like me, not journalists, not reporters, are completely free to go in Xinjiang anywhere we like. So what I did in my couple of weeks in Xinjiang was a few days where, let's say, semi-official. So I did organize meeting with the local community, with local leaders. And of course, in order to do that, I asked, and the local government facilitated these encounters. The rest of the 10 days, I simply got on taxis, and like you say, speaking the languages, and I traveled alone freely to go anywhere I liked.
Really?
And so everyone that is in China, any foreigners, of course, in these days of pandemic, not everyone can be in China, but that's not a problem of Xinjiang, it's a problem of travel, international travel. But anyone who is in China today can simply take a plane, take a train, and go to Xinjiang as if he was in Beijing or Shanghai, in any other city of China. So there are no specific travel restrictions for people who are not, of course, from the media. But because the media is in any way restricted in China. Now, of course, I cannot go to a prison, I cannot go to a camp, but neither can I do that in France or in the UK. As an individual, I can go where normal people can go. So my testimony is that of a, let's say, a researcher, a scholar, that travels into those areas and analyze and talks, like you are right, speaking the language does help to get rid of all the intermediary, the translators, and just being able to get on a taxi, get on a bus, go to the market and just talk to local people to feel directly how they perceive the situation. And the message I got from the local community, Uyghur community, is that it's pretty much there is no major friction between them and the Han community. I did not sense on the side of the Uyghur that there is an invasion of Han people. I think there's always a trade-off when there is a transfer of people from part of China into Xinjiang. Now the population is, let's say, half Uyghur, half ethnic Han. And of course, this changes the situation. Some people may say this diminishes the local flair, the local culture. But some people say that also brings variety. You know, we are take international cities like London. London is not a British city anymore.
Right.
So in a way, you can argue that London does not have the British flair that it used to have in the 60s. Of course,
Yes.
because it's a bunch of us, Italians, Spanish, Americans, now go there. And it's always a trade-off. How much do you want to protect your original culture and how much you want to mix with international and diverse. But I do think the benefits, economic and social, again, I did not really perceive any targeted action towards an ethnic minority. Also because, I tell you another thing, before going to Xinjiang, I took a train from Shanghai and I stopped in Xi'an, which is, again, one of the main areas of Muslim community. There is the Hui minority, also Muslim, lots of mosques, and that's become a source of income, of revenue, because people go and see the street where they do kebab, lamb, and so on. So there is absolutely no friction between the Han ethnic and the Hui Muslim minority in Xi'an.
So Michele, your personal observations and your testimony is so diametrically opposite of what we are reading today in the West. So let me ask you, what can China do? I realize that the openness, press freedom and so on is not there. Reporters are not as welcome. But is there something that you would recommend that China do to obliterate, to get rid of this, as you say, false narrative that we read here?
But you asked me before, and I didn't answer the question. Why does China not let foreign observers to come in and see for themselves? That whatever happens in the cotton fields, the reason is, and I know this almost for a fact. Let's say factoid. So don't quote me 100% because it's my view. I think China believes that the West is looking for anything to accuse them. So China believes that even if they were to allow foreign observers or reporters to go and look at it, they would not be in good faith. They would be there to find problems, not to find the truth. In a way, China feels that the West is fighting a battle against it, against China, making up stories. And so they see there is no point, guys, for you to really come here because we know, that's China speaking, that you are not here seeking the truth. You are here trying to make up stories. Now, as an analyst, I tell you, in China, like in any way, you can always find any kind of anecdote. We can find people whose rights have maybe been put aside. Train is behind.
Yes, it adds some real color to the narrative.
We can always find anecdotes in any direction. We can find people whose families have been mistreated. We can find people who are happy about having found new jobs. We can find some people who complain that the Han community maybe have taken some of the industries and they created unemployment or competition for the job market or for the university, anything. But we, as analysts, cannot, from anecdotes, lead immediately to answers. The anecdotes are very useful to put questions. It's an initial analytical step that says, oh, I found 2 or 3 cases that make me wonder what else is going on. So from then I proceed, I develop the analysis to come to a conclusion. The problem is that many analysts instead from the anecdotes jump into the conclusion. So they hear, oh, Mr. X and Y has that problem, so that's a systemic problem. And this is really methodologically not correct because you can find things that tell different stories. There are 1.4 billion anecdotes in China.
Yes. So, well, I appreciate what you said, and I wanted to give you this amount of time to really get into it a little more deeply because, as you know, I don't think the West, and especially America, has any choice but to deal with, get along with China, because this is the most consequential relationship of our time. Right. And so I don't want to get into any cross-examination or anything, but I just wanted to give you the chance to lay out what you have personally seen, and you have the kind of reputation and the gravitas to make that to make that go home to a lot of our viewers. Right. I want to move on to another topic, but before that, Michele, I just want to remind our viewers that this is Polaris Live. We rely a lot on your support. And if you would like, we'd very much want you to go to the YouTube Polaris channel and subscribe. That really does help us. Now, Michele, I want to switch topics.
Wait, sorry, may I just add one more thing? Maybe relevant.
Please.
You are right. We need to engage with China. It's there. We cannot ignore it. My advice to our American friends, and this is what I'm doing here in Europe to my government and others, is that China has a lot of issues that needs to address in terms of economics, reciprocity, equal access, market access, subsidies, competition on state-owned companies.
Right.
If we have an issue with China for those problems that are true problems, we should address those problems because they are real. China knows that they need to do something about it. Now, if we, on the other hand, take it on China for things that are a little bit more fluff, like this genocide, we move ourselves from being right in asking China for more market openness. We put ourselves into the wrong position to accuse China of something that maybe they didn't do it. And so this really is not a good tactic to really solve the other problem because it just creates more rigidity in the response of Chinese. You know, if I think someone did something wrong, I will take the issue on that, not on something else. And we are opening up too many fronts by weakening our own Western ethical strength to actually persuade China to change in the things that we and even China knows change is required.
Good point. So I'm glad that you did mention that. I want to switch very quickly. You were one of the people who saw the advantages for Italy and of signing the Memorandum of Understanding, the Belt and Road Initiative Memorandum of Understanding between Italy and China, right? And Italy was the first G7 country to do that. There seems to be some concern now on the part of the Prime Minister about this. And so there is talk of Italy leaving it. I mean, I can only think about what that means, but do you think it will happen? Why this reaction? Let's talk a couple of minutes on that, if you don't mind, Michele.
Sure. No, I don't think it will happen. If it were to happen, I want to be very clear. You know, I'm very direct. I don't use a rounded way. It would be a
trouble
disaster.
with your bankers.
It would be a disaster for Italian exports into China, into Asia, all the investment into Asia and Africa for Italy. Because the Belt and Road is not just Italy and China, it's Italy and all the Asian countries, all the 50 plus African countries to do business, to develop infrastructure, agricultural product to give a new market for our exports. So let me be clear. Belt and Road is not just Italy and China, it's Italy and another, make it around 100 countries, which are, by the way, the two continents, Asia and Africa, that could represent the highest growth over the next 10, 20 years. So it would be really curious if Italy were to close the door to the biggest and fastest growing market in the world. So I don't think Italy should do it. Now, President Draghi only really mentioned something for, I think, 2 or 3 seconds. On the question of a journalist about the MOU, Mr. Draghi said, regarding the content of the MOU, I'm reviewing it. And I think he means I haven't had time to focus on it over the last 3 months because I just came in. China was not a priority. Priority was to get the new government in place, the pandemic, the economy, the recovery plan with Europe. So I think what it means is now I have time, let me look at it. What is it that I haven't had the chance to do it? And so in no way saying, let me look at something means I don't want it. It just means I haven't seen it yet. Well, so I want to reassure that, and I know Draghi is a very competent person and cares about the Italian economy, and he would not do things that would hurt it. And so when I say that leaving would be a disaster for the Made in Italy, for tourism also. Yes. Because we know that would create that rigidity that we talked about in the Chinese consumers towards all Italian products. Right. He's very well aware of it. I make sure I remind him via the media every day that this is an important thing analytically. And so I think he's capable to understand that this is not going to happen.
And this is also, it seems to me, a little bit insulting to Italy, isn't it? Because if we are implying that because of this memorandum of understanding that Chinese influence and military and otherwise will seep into Italy, it seems to me it's a little bit insulting to think of Italy that way too, that it's as old and civilization as China, and don't you think that?
I do agree with you. We have taken into account all the critics of the MOU, but this one, like Italy being vulnerable, Italy falling into the debt trap, like I told you at the beginning, when we do the analysis, I look at it, and I give the answer after analyzing it. And we have analyzed them in depth and kind of dismissed. You know, Italy is a grown-up country. We have economic problems like most other countries these days, but we are quite capable to be within the NATO and Atlantic Alliance to look after our own interests with the help and coordination of our allies and partners. So there is, in fact, the MOU, if anything, just because we do it and we talk about it, has raised the level of alert.
Yes.
And I tell you, one of the reasons why I did it was exactly this, to have Italy and Italian public debate about China, so that we can analyze if there are predatory M&A, if there is some investment that we would not want China to do it. Because before, without the MOU, China, as well as other countries in Europe, not just China, were sweeping assets in Italy without us noticing it. So the MOU has raised the level of alert, the debate is there, so that's a benefit, not a disadvantage for Italy having done the MOU.
So Michele, as an American, let me raise a flag here. Italy and America have a huge trade relationship, so this isn't going to impact our commercial relationship, is it?
No, because the United States, I'll tell you another maybe new information, is Italy largest consumer of made in Italy products. So the United States is the #1 trading partner of Italy.
Wow.
Unlike the official statistics that put the USA #3 after Germany and France, we did some analysis and calculation looking at all the triangular paths and flows. and the United States consumes 80 billion of Italian goods. So for us, Italy, the United States is the most important market.
And you don't even have a memorandum of understanding with us.
Because luckily we have millions of Italians that live between New York and California, from New England to the south, that are the pull to Italian products. We don't need to market wine. We have the Italian restaurants and the Italian consumers that buy our wine, our cheese, our food, and our fashion products.
So wonderful.
Which we don't have in Asia. That's why we need to do MOU. That's why we do well in Germany, we do well in England, we do well in the United States,
and that's
in France, because we have migrants.
That's
we have Italian people living there.
Sorry, I'm interrupting you, but Asia is the growth area, right? And you need to develop in Europe that market because the EU is slowing down.
Indeed. And you as an American, me as an Italian, we want the same thing from China. We want to sell more of our products into that market. The American administration would like to have more of made in American products, maybe to narrow the gap, the trade deficit, or maybe President Biden is not so focused like President Trump on the deficit, but still more American exports into China would be beneficial for the US economy, and so would for the Italian economy. So we really have the same interest. We are facing the biggest growing market, and I repeat, it's not just China, because China will pull the rest of Asia and the rest of Africa, whether we like it or not. They are now semi-dominant, not everywhere, but with a big economic influence. And so we have a complete alignment of interest. Italy has no geopolitical shift towards China. Mr. Draghi reiterated last week in Cornwall. I've been saying it for the last 3 years. We simply want to do what everyone in the world wants to do: sell more and trade more with China. Very simple. Nothing mystic, nothing geopolitical about it. Very simple, giving bread and butter to our people here. They have suffered minus 9% GDP decline.
It's we have just a little over a minute left, Michele, but I did want to ask you, there was the G7 meeting a couple of weeks ago. Do you think it is time to include China in the G7, or do you think China should remain in the G20, which is meeting in Rome later this year? Do you think, given China's size, it should join the G7, or do you think because the G7 is a democracy club, so to speak? Any thoughts on that?
It's a good point. If the G7 is the 7 biggest economies, then we should make it G9 with China and India. And I think that would be a good signal to engage, because I do believe that the solution that we have, the only way to solve it is to engage, not to fight. So being part of meetings would be good. Now, if we have different ideas because we are electoral democracies and they are not, so be it. They have shown they have no intention to change our democratic system. President Xi has said everyone does what they like in their own homes. So we have our system, you have yours. So it depends. What is the G7? G7 is about economy or it's about geopolitics? It used to be about economy. And now it's stepped into geopolitics. And when you do that, you cannot do geopolitics amongst people who think alike. Otherwise, it diminishes the value. If you all have the same ideas, there is no progress in the discussion. You need to have people who think differently so that you can come to a common synthesis. That's the value of talking, to talk people who don't agree with you in the first place. Otherwise, there are lots of mirrors we have in the morning that we can talk to hear what we know already.
Well, Professor Michele GERACI, it's always a learning experience to talk with you. I'm sure your students in your classroom get their PhD just by listening to you.
I wish.
I want to really thank you for coming back. You will always be welcome on this platform, Michele. And thank you so very much for speaking to our viewers.
Pleasure. Thank you very much.
Well, with this Polaris-LIVE episode, we bring to a close this segment of conversations with global experts to recommend U.S. agenda for the new American president, Joe Biden. These conversations have, by the way, led to a report that I've prepared for the Foreign Policy Association of New York, and this report is about to be published. I would like to show you the cover of this report. The Foreign Policy Association will distribute this report to all relevant U.S. congressional committees and to members of President Biden's National Security Advisors Group. So, why is this report called a telegram? Well, the first three people who answer that question will correctly will receive a signed copy of this report from me. All you have to do is go to my website, kashmeri.com, and provide the correct answer through there. It's also a great pleasure for me to tell you that Mr. Ryan Haas, former U.S. President Obama's National Security Director for China and a senior fellow now at the Brookings Institution, will release this report for the Foreign Policy Association. And I'm also honored to tell you that Dr. Kishore Mahbubani, Distinguished Fellow Asia Research Institute at the National University of Singapore, will release this report in Asia. Now, allow me please to thank each and every one of you, all our viewers from around the world, for your support of Polaris Live. Polaris Live will be back week of July 21 to continue this global conversation on the U.S.-China relationship, perhaps the most consequential foreign policy issue of our time. So until that time, let me wish all of you a pleasant goodbye and thank you again for your support.